How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Hammer, House of Horror. This is episode 12, and this one's entitled The Two Faces of Evil. This is from November 29th, 1980, and is directed by Alan Gibson. Now, if that name sounds familiar, Alan Gibson is the same guy that directed episode 7, The Silent Scream. That was the one with Peter Cushing in it. So always great to see a director come back, and yeah, really cool to see Alan Gibson again. This episode stars Anna Calder-Marshall and Gary Raymond, and this is about a happy family, mom, dad, and kid, going to their vacation home. As they're going, they pick up a hitchhiker. The hitchhiker attacks the husband, and they crash. The wife wakes up in the hospital and is told, "You're okay, your son's okay, but your husband is just barely pulled through. He had a bit of glass in his throat and had to go through surgery to get that taken out." So she goes and prepares the vacation house. A few days later, he comes in, and there's something off about him. I mean, lots of this can be explained by his injuries, but still, there's something off, and over the course of the next few days, she starts to suspect, what if this really isn't my husband? What if they drugged the wrong guy out of the wreck? What if this is a doppelganger? So yeah, really cool, a doppelganger episode. You know, doppelgangers in horror happen from time to time. Not as often as you think, but whenever they do, they're usually really, really cool. Think Invasion of the Body Snatchers, just recently Us came out. So yeah, some pretty fun stuff. And yeah, cool to see a doppelganger episode. And when this episode first came out, a lot of people said, this is a little confusing, I'm not quite sure what's up. But that's kind of the point. You know, the wife wakes up in the hospital, she doesn't really know what's going on, and she's trying to piece the world back together, and she's told, "You're okay, go about your business," but something's off, and she knows it, and I do like that it doesn't fully explain this to you, and that really does create a very, very good surrealist feel to this episode. Overall, I really did like it. I think it's one of the better episodes. A few things, the husband does a really good job, this actor. You see him in the beginning, and he's happy-go-lucky, he's singing with his family, and then you see him when he's the creature, the doppelganger, and you can say, oh, hey, it's just because he's hurt, that's why he's acting different, but you're not quite sure. It feels like there's constantly something up with this guy, and it's just really cool to see him be a regular guy and then be the creature, and it's a great creepy creature. And then when you think back to him being normal, you're like, wow, these really does feel like different people, you know? And also, they don't fully explain it. You know, by the end of it, you get a general idea what's going on, but they never sit down and spell it out. You know, they talk about doppelgangers a little bit, but it's not all spelled out. Now, I know horror, a lot of people criticize when they do the library scene. Later on, it would become the Google scene, where the protagonist just does a bunch of research and figures everything out. Well, this is what happens when you don't have that. It's a lot looser, a lot more surreal, and overall I think really fits with this episode. Overall, a really great, really disturbing episode, and I really did like it. One of the better ones, I feel. Without further ado, let's go and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to analyze the episode. I'll just be avoiding the end bits. Anyway, we open up with the happy family I talked about. They're all in the car singing. They're on their way to their vacation home. All is looking nice when the dad almost accidentally hits a hitchhiker. He goes back to pick him up, much to the wife's protest, which I totally get. There's clearly something wrong with this guy. But it's this guy with a raincoat on, and he's got a yellow hat, so all yellow, and the hat's kind of blocking his face so you don't see him. And he doesn't talk, he just points at where he wants to go, and once they get going, he reaches out and attacks the dad. he's got a really long fingernail and really just jabs it into the guy, and that causes them to have a car wreck. Another Hammer House of Horror car wreck. I mentioned this before, but car horror, it's a weird trope with Hammer House of Horror. Lots of them have car wrecks or almost car wrecks. I don't know why, but it's in about half the episodes, and here's another case of it. But it kicks off the plot. So anyway, the wife wakes up in the hospital. She feels disoriented, but she's told she's okay and her kid's okay, and the husband will live. The husband, big thing of glass in his throat. He can barely talk. He can barely swallow. He had to go through emergency surgery, but he's pulling through. So all in all, it seems like it's going to be good. She goes and sees him. He's got the bandage on the throat, bandage on the hands, lots of scars everywhere, and some of his bigger cuts have these middle brackets holding them together. A pretty cool design there. And she starts to talk to the doctor and says, "There's a man, a hitchhiker, did you find him?" And the nurse pushes her away. "Hey, this is the doctor that saved your life, don't bother him with these things." And she's oddly rude right off the bat, but later on she does bring up a good point. This is the doctor, not the detective. He's not gonna go out and solve the mystery. Eventually the detective does show up, and the detective, she goes and she gets to see all her stuff that was packed in the car. It's all smashed up and torn and there's some blood on it. But then the detective says, "We believe your husband, with his last ounce of strength before he passed out, fought the guy off." And she starts to have like a little bit of a flashback to this. And we have another dead body we found not too far away, but because your husband didn't take the guy that far, we don't know if this is the killer or another victim. So she has to go and take a look at it, which she really doesn't want to do because that's kind of disturbing. And when they pull the cloth back, she sees her husband's face. But she can't accept that. She can't admit that, which really she should have, because that would have made the episode a lot shorter. But she just doesn't accept it because her husband's upstairs, alive and well, and maybe I'm just seeing things, So she doesn't admit it. And really it's kind of confusing for an audience because you're like, wait, that looks like the husband, the first time you see it. Anyway, she goes back, she gets her life together, she sets up the cabin, she burns all the broken stuff from the car wreck, and she's trying to pull through, and after a few days the husband comes. She gives him a bell so he can ring it if anything's going on, and overall it seems like things are okay. He's definitely out of it and definitely not doing too good, but this is her husband, right? Well, over time, she starts to kind of get that something's off, that something's different. And she gets that feeling, she did see the other man that looked like her husband as well, and she's getting these flashbacks and starting to think, what really did happen? We were all out, we don't really know for sure, and if this isn't her husband, what does she do? Really good and surreal. Just the general idea is surreal, but the way they executed it too, where you really don't know what's going on, really, really good episode. And I won't talk too much about the end, but it does lead to a dark ending, and I really do like that. Anthology horror endings can get a lot darker than regular movie ones, and you really don't know what's going to happen at the end of the episode. But there's a moment in particular where they find a dead body, and they touch it, and the way it just slumps over, really, really good and really creepy. But yeah, definitely recommend this episode. I feel it was one of the better ones, and I think it was pretty cool. Anyway, this is episode 12 of 13. I've almost done individual episode reviews for the whole show, just one more left. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Hammer House of Horror playlist, where you can see my initial review when I first watched this show about 2 years ago, and also my individual episode reviews for every episode of this show up until now, and last one coming soon. Cool to get through all of these, so one more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Hammer House of Horror playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.